workshop meeting of September 9th, 2019 to order. All stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And once again, all meetings are recorded. They are uploaded to YouTube. They are available for current viewers, and they will be available for all time. Give a roll call, please.
Vice President Jones,
Present.
Commissioner Dara,
Present.
Commissioner Duplaga, present, Commissioner Williams, not here, and Commissioner Richard,
Present.
and Solicitor Law.
Present.
Is there a motion to approve the August 19, 2019 legislative meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any
Aye.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So, Mr. Turnley, a presentation of our financial position and audit. Could you please use the podium?
I thought that might be what this needs to be.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Board members, thank you for having me here this evening. I just wanted to briefly, if I could, go over this copy of the audit report, draft copy of the audit report, and two other pieces of correspondence related to the audit for this evening. With regard to the thicker audit report itself, I just wanted to touch base on a couple of items in that report. Probably the most important pages in that report, at least from our perspective, is the independent auditor's opinion. In the very front of that thicker audit report on Roman numeral pages 1 and 2 is our independent auditor's report. And what we've issued for the Township of Aleppo is what is known as an unmodified opinion. And it's what we've issued for the township in past years. And what an unmodified opinion basically means is that the information contained in the body of the audit report is in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession, and there are no departures from those rules and regulations. So in layman's terms, that's a good thing. It's a type of auditor's opinion that you want to have. Behind that section of the audit report is a section known as the management discussion and analysis, and I know, being a former board member myself, that you're inundated with paperwork. All board members are. So I encourage you, if you don't get a chance to dig through the full report, take a look at that management discussion and analysis section when you get a chance, and that's Roman numerals 3 through Roman numerals 13. The purpose of that is not only to maybe make life easy for the board members, or a little easier anyway, but also for the viewing public. If somebody is to review the audit report, that section of the report provides a synopsis of how the township did from a financial perspective, not only for the year under audit, which in this case was calendar year 2018, but provides comparative numbers 2017 versus 2018, and tries briefly to give the reasons why and why not numbers are above last year or below last year, why you were over budget in certain areas and under budget in other areas. So again, it's a brief synopsis. It may not seem like a brief synopsis, but it does help you go through the audit report a little bit quicker in terms of understanding. I'm going to turn your attention to another piece of correspondence that I gave you, and I'm going to refer back to that thicker report, but I have a letter that I gave to the board dated for this evening, September 9th, and it's a 4-page letter. And this is what's known as our management letter in our profession. So I wanted to go over a few items on here, not go over this in detail. Those of you that have been on the board for a while, some of these issues that we talk about each year, maybe internal control weaknesses, are simply for the fact that you just don't have enough hands in-house to segregate the duties that would be the case if you were a major corporation. And this is the case with a lot of my municipalities, just in terms of size. You only have so many people handling the financial records within the township. So it's our responsibility and a requirement to say to the board that, although we didn't see anything, obviously, or we brought it to your attention, there's always going to be a weakness when you don't have as many people as might be ideal to handle all the finances of the township. So we bring that to your attention each year. On the top of page 3, starting on the top of page 3, I just wanted to mention something quickly to the board, is, every 3 years I have what's known as a peer review. Just by the nature of the work I do, I'm required to undergo an audit, much like I put Glenn through every year, is to have, they will take a sample test of all my clients and go through them thoroughly to make sure that our quality control procedures are all in place and things of that nature. But one of the things that he said to me is, Mark, it's not mandatory, but are you talking to your clients at all about cybersecurity policies, regardless of their size? And I said, no. I said, I'm not, because I'm not an expert in that area. He said, whether you're an expert or not, he said, you'd be doing your clients a disservice if you at least didn't mention it in the management letter annually, which is what I've done this year. And just to direct them to think about what they have in terms of IT, their technology, and determine if they have weaknesses. He said their firm, the gentleman that does my peer review, they do handle cybersecurity engagements, is what they call them. And what they found out is a lot of places feel that their IT folks are very good, exceptional. But when they go in and do some cyber training, they find out that not everything was as tight as they had hoped it'd be, and that there was room for improvement. So I like to tell my municipalities, you have so much public information out there. You may have information that is critical that should not be released, whether it's your banking accounts, things of that nature, that need to be looked at or have somebody look at them in any event to determine if you are shored up as much as you can be for the size of your township. So again, I won't belabor the point because I'm not an expert in this area, but when your peer reviewer in my profession tells you to tell your client that, I'm at least smart enough to be able to reiterate that back to you, so I did. So I'm on record of having done that. Below that, I have a section called General Fund Balance Analysis. And what I like to do for my boards is to give you a little history of your main operating fund, your general fund, and how it's changed over the last 5 years. Now, you're only going to see the last year in your actual thicker audit report, but this kind of gives you a feel back to 2014. And if you look at the 2018 line, you're going to see your general fund balance ended at $1,252,033, which is about a $132,000 increase for the year, which is almost 12%. Above that, though, I have a bullet point just for informational purposes. In our profession, there's a recognized organization called the Government Finance Officers Association. And one of the main questions we get all the time and the industry gets is, Mark, what is a good fund balance? What is a goal for fund balance? Whether it's at that or higher or lower. And what they've come up with is a good or prudent fund balance to start is to try to make sure you have on hand at least 2 months worth of expenditures, average expenditures. So I did the calculation for Aleppo Township. When you do the calculation, it's about $190,000, which is about 13% of your budget. But in your particular case, you can see that your fund balance is at $1,252,000. So you're way above that threshold. It's not a concern for you. But nevertheless, it's an industry marker that I wanted to bring to your attention. On page 4, I started to do an analysis of general fund budget versus actual results. And in the body of the audit report, in the thicker audit report, toward the back of the audit report, you're going to see some pages that give you detailed budget versus actual information. It starts on page 36 and it runs through 41 for your general fund. This is line item by line item, how you approved your budget at the beginning of the year. Here I'm just showing you some larger, broader categories of how you did. I noted that the general fund budgeted revenues exceeded actual revenues by $172,000. But when you actually look in the audit report and look at that detail, you're going to see a lot of areas where actual exceeded budget. However, one particular area stands out. You had budgeted for a transfer of $300,000 to come in from the capital improvement fund to pay for a road construction, road maintenance, road paving, when in fact you actually paid for that directly out of that fund. So it was not necessary to transfer those monies in. So that's why your budget shows more than actual. And the same thing was true on the expenditure side. You had a large expenditure come out of your capital improvement fund where it was budgeted for as an expense in the general fund. So we just noted that little difference there. But when you look at all other line items with regard to expenditures, they're fairly within reason 1 year versus the next. But I just wanted to point that out for you so you could see that information. At least this is what we saw. And when you look at those expenditures in that thicker audit report, the operations or the activities of each of your pots of money, as I like to call them, your capital improvement fund, your general fund, highway aid fund, that's all in the body of the audit report with how you did 1 year versus the next. Another letter that I had given you for this evening is a 3-page letter, also dated for September 9th. This is a required communication to the board. One of the first bullet points says qualitative aspects of accounting practices. About 5 or 6 years ago, our profession said, going forward, you must at the end of each audit engagement provide a letter to the board indicating certain aspects of the audit. These are not management letter comments or recommendations. These are just certain aspects. And whether you had assumptions, major assumptions that came into play in performing your audits, what new policies you had to put into play. If you had any issues in dealing with management, which is most important. Do you have any issues dealing with management, trying to get the information you needed to do your job in an efficient and prudent manner? And as you read through there, although there's some technical language there, you will see that we didn't have any problems in getting the information we needed to be able to do our job the way we needed to do it and report back to the Board of Commissioners. That, in terms of highlights, I believe that's basically it in a nutshell. Again, the audit report, as you can see, is a thick document. It takes time to go through, but the sections that I mentioned to you, maybe most importantly for your sake and ease in reading and determining the results for the year, is that management discussion and analysis section up front on Roman numerals 3 through 13. So if you have any questions at this point, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But if you get a chance to go over the report in detail and you see things that, hey, I'd like to have marked back for another meeting, or we have additional questions, or why this or why that, I'll be more than happy to answer them as your questions come up. So.
We'll probably take some time to review it. Gwen, could you just simply explain the $300,000 transfer?
Well, I made a note to ask about that. I don't know if it was just a transfer issue, whether like he paid the invoice in 18, but then we transferred the money over in early 19. I'm not sure, so I have to look into that. But I mean, so I don't know exactly what that was.
Okay.
Is that what it sounded like? It sounded like we paid out of the general fund, but then we didn't transfer the money back in from the capital improvements?
No, it
or?
looks as, and I'd have to ask Travis specifically, but it looks like you paid the money directly out of the capital improvements fund as opposed to actually making the transfer and showing that transfer in the same year. So it could have been a time difference
So I think it's probably a time.
for 2018.
Okay, that's what I think
Okay.
it might be.
And you
So
may
I'll
see the
check on
reverse
that.
in 2019.
Right.
Just the opposite.
I'll check
Yeah,
on that.
Okay.
And in general, Mark, as you commented, we have much more than the standard policy in our general fund. And slowly we've been transferring that into various reserve funds, primarily public works and trucks. So that's where these transfers seem to occur, and we'll straighten that out.
And well, on that point, and again, not to belabor this point, we've talked about in prior years having a good fund balance policy. And there's ways for the board to assign and commit monies formally through board action so that the public sees that we might have this type of balance, but we have these type of capital expenditures coming down the pike, and we need to reserve monies for those so that it does not appear that all those monies are just for general operations, because they never are for any of my municipalities. There's always those needs that come up and arise, and if that money is earmarked in a certain way, it'll be shown that way in the audit report, and it's an easier read for the public to understand. Hey, I see that they have these monies, but yes, we understand that they have infrastructure improvements that they need, this, that, and the other thing. So
Do you have a specific recommendation in this report regarding that?
yes.
It's in, do you know what page that's on?
Excuse me.
Attention to that.
In that 4-page letter that I had given you, or that I first talked about, let me make sure I have that here.
page 2.
I think it's, yes, thank you.
Page 2.
Fund balance.
Page 2, fund balance policy.
Okay, so this is what we need to look into for future, just so we don't have this issue creep up later, just make it easier.
We had, just in following along, the correct, in those management letter comments, we had for a number of years reconciliation issues, bank reconciliation issues. You won't find that comment this year because that matter was rectified. So in the 2018 management letter comment, the bank reconciling issue has been resolved, so we're good with that.
Don't we have a cybersecurity policy already in place? We already discussed this, right?
We do have an insurance policy, a cybersecurity insurance policy. It sounds like maybe they're also recommending some kind of practice audit, not just the policy, but just to have somebody come in like and assess the day-to-day things. Is that what it's?
Right.
Okay.
It's a little bit more training than the insurance. The insurance policy is kind of a broad coverage
Right.
area, but it may not specifically protect you. Even though you may have coverage, and that's a good question because I've been asked that before. Once again, not a cybersecurity expert in terms of that, but what I've been told is the insurance is something that will cover you, but sometimes that happens after the fact. What you're trying to prevent through your cybersecurity IT policies is to nip that in the bud before it happens. Have the shields in place, the protective items in your system to be able to, for that not to happen, not even to have to use that insurance.
Yeah, so we're talking about things like, passwords are secure and encrypting like certain types of documentation or maybe things like that. I think that's what you're going.
Yeah. Somebody being able to access emails going out that have confidential or secure information in it. There's other procedures. Some of my school districts employ their depository will have a fraud protection system whereby the school district will give them a list of their vendors and they'll give them dollar amounts. And if the bank earmarks anybody outside of that range, they simply won't pay the bill. If they see an ACH transfer out of your bank account that exceeds that threshold, they simply won't release it. So, and then they immediately notify the client. In this case, it would be Gwen. She'd get an email saying, your system has been breached. We see a check to so-and-so. Do you authorize this? And it might be just a one-time check above your threshold. You push the button and say, yes, that's good. But you at least have the opportunity to catch that before it's released. And then you have to follow up afterwards trying to track that down. So that's just one example of the protection and securities that are out there. That are afforded to everyone, but it may be applicable to you as well.
Do we have a vendor or someone that can assist us if we need to develop this? Do we have anyone?
I mean, we have an IT consultant, but I could start with him.
Okay.
I'll start with him and see if he has, there's a certain.
Ask him how to start with this
Yeah.
and see what we need to do.
I would suspect the bank also has some good resource.
That's a good idea.
Oh, yeah. They'll be able to tell you because they market those products.
Right. Any other questions for Mark?
No.
Any questions? Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll be back.
I'm sure.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay, old business, engineering report, Rhodes Avenue pavement repair event.
All right, thank you. Last week, HRG met with, Township staff after the last meeting to determine what kind of temporary fix would be, best situated using township forces. We met with Bill Davis, did a site visit, and I think we can come up with a plan that they are underway with. We've lowered the amount of repair to the area that is sinking. The thought being it would allow for less impact to the residents on the road, more in line with the schedule and the equipment that the township had access to, and could be at least patched temporarily with paving so we could reset some hubs and be able to monitor it throughout the winter if it is still moving. The thought was gravel. it would change every time the snowplow hit it or it rained. So we were to get it paved. We may, through some municipal sharing, be able to actually put a final wearing course over the area to be repaired. It's about 150 feet. It's about 6 feet wide. We're looking to dig it down roughly a foot, put in a geotextile fabric, build it up with an Ashton #1, baseball size rock, choke that off about 2 inches of 2A, PennDOT 2A limestone, so thumb size rock, and then put a binder course on top of that. So my understanding is they've started today.
They started mobilizing today, yes.
And should be tearing into it here this week, and 1 to 2 weeks total is kind of their estimate. So that's the update on that.
Was that, you're saying that asphalt over, what was the top coat?
We're looking at probably 19 millimeter, a medium size asphalt, and then they may be able to coat it with a more of a wearing fine course. The idea is to get it sealed. We're also looking at putting in a small under drain pipe, so if any water were to get in that stone, to direct it away to a drainage pipe. And the idea is to get it out through a pipe network instead of it seeping through the hillside.
And Bell Acres, where we got the equipment?
I think they were intending to rent some of the equipment, and they found a work share opportunity with Aleppo Township, if I believe correct. So,
Was there a budget?
I do not know the actual budget for township forces and how you account for your labor versus equipment rental. We ran a quick budget, just kind of looking at some bid prices, and we were at the 10 grand range.
Okay. And Gwen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the motion that we passed allowed you to do the final design, but it did not call for the completion of the work. So I think we need a motion. Given this situation, it's time is of the essence, but we need a motion to allow for the completion of the project.
And what was that? That was a separate cost in addition to?
Oh, we'll have internal costs with labor,
That's what you said, the 10.
but the 10 is otherwise. The 10 is third
if
party.
Yeah, we would have thought if you'd have bid it, that's kind of the magnitude of a project that you'd be looking at with the new quantities. Our hope is that it'll be much cheaper using township forces, but again, how you code labor and materials, I'm not in the weeds that much into your day-to-day
I'm
operations.
sorry, I'm still confused. What portion of the 10K is HRG? Or is that just our in?
That was construction costs.
Construction
Yes.
costs,
Okay.
not HR, that was
Not,
construction
so
costs.
what is HRG's portion?
We did it via the retainer. I think we had 8 hours in it, 10 hours in it.
Oh.
So the original estimates were in the range of 20,000.
Okay.
The internal costs are not extra. We're paying those salaries anyways. So I think it's well within budget. You're satisfied with the design?
Yeah, I think, we've come up with a solution that's both constructible with the staff and some rental equipment or their abilities. It minimizes impact to the people that live beyond the repair, and it gets it sealed up for the winter and allows us to reset hubs to still watch it moving forward to see if it is still moving. So
And as Gwen said, they mobilized today, so again, we need a motion to allow for the
Move that
completion.
we proceed with the fix as recommended by the engineer at this evening's meeting, that the work be done as described and proceed as soon as possible.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I did have one more question. How long will the patch approximately should it last before we need to actually put a permit?
that will depend on the movement of the slide. Assuming no movement, it's a patch consistent with what we would typically see base repairs, so 5-10 years.
Oh, really?
Depending, yeah, we're not doing a real Band-Aid patch, we're doing an actual repair that I'd recommend on a road that's not moving.
Yeah.
But again, the movement of the hill that's all going to be dependent on that. It may be months, maybe weeks,
Okay.
Could be years.
Is any drainage or diversion aspect being included?
We are including like a 4 or 6 inch, depending on what Bill was able to find, perforated pipe. There is an existing perforated pipe that ties into the back of an inlet box that is close to there. We're trying to run that, so if any groundwater were to come through or any water subsurface would hit that pipe, the thought is it would go in the pipe, out the pipe, and out an inlet, versus seeping through the hillside. So minor, but yes.
Good. Okay,
Thank you.
the geotechnical monitoring proposals.
Just to follow up, see if you guys have any more questions on that. I believe you tabled it for a month and hopefully vote one way or another next week.
Yes. Have you thought about it in any different manner?
No, I think it's still, as presented last month, it's the information to determine whether or not and how that thing is moving, to determine what the next step is. Is it a shallow repair like the soil nail? Is it more of a deep repair like the wall? Where do we go from here?
And we have a formal proposal, Gwen.
Do we put
In-house.
my image back up too, please?
I don't know if you have it still.
Yes, you do have a formal
We still
proposal.
have the image of Rose Avenue.
Let me see.
Sorry.
No, it's on my other computer, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. You had mentioned the third boring, moving it closer to, was that the entrance with Redgate?
Yes, the
And-
intersection.
And the purpose of that was to,
We're seeing in the guide rail and the trees, say, they're starting to lean over the hill, similar to what we would see with movement in the hill. And I think it's a good kind of baseline, as well as while you're out there, let's see what's happening up front compared to the back. So why is that guide rail laying over? Why are the trees laying over against the sunlight in the opening?
So
Do you
you
have
think
some
that's
other
sliding?
movement? It appears as it could be. And while we're doing the testing, let's do two in the area that we're definitely seeing movement. Also get some data out front, because if you have an issue out there, it may be better to address that before you have a major catastrophe, especially since it's out towards the front.
yeah.
Which is what was in the motion that you put on the table last month, deferred to tonight.
Yeah, I heard that, just didn't quite understand it when I watched the video, so I was trying to get more information about that
Because I think
Okay.
in the picture it had all the borings
together.
together, yeah, that was sort of an add-on as we discussed.
And this is just relocating one further to the front, so we can see what's happening along that, more larger section where we
Right.
can see where it's coming from. Okay.
I'm going to skip Deer Run quickly and,
We need to act on the motion.
no, we decided to do it at the legislative
Because
meeting.
the last
Okay.
legislative you deferred for 30 days, so that would be
Okay,
next week.
sorry.
That's all right. The pavement markings and speed monitoring, Commissioner Duplaga wasn't here when you made that presentation.
Okay.
I don't think there's much more to say, but
I did ask, I heard the discussion that you had with Chief Hanny and Gwen, as well as the pavement marking discussion, and
Dave,
hey Dave, can you put that picture up?
I don't think he has it. We didn't
Yep.
give him any.
No, it's a different one. Give up today. So this was what I was thinking of, if you turn around, George. They have these down in Osborne and Swiftly. You were talking
Yeah.
about, and not those giant ones that the
No.
police put out, right? Okay, I wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
you might have heard that Harlan told Gwen to call Osborne.
Oh, okay.
She's investigating the costs and the various
Well,
styles.
Osborne has them and Swiftly has them, so they can't be that
Yep.
expensive, right?
Our high-end neighbors.
You probably heard me say that, maybe we do some lines over here and some monitoring signs over here. We'll investigate, because we can't do anything until next year.
Well, I was thinking the approach might be, we could, or maybe earlier in the year, put these up, and then come back later, once we figure out what we're doing with the road surface, then we can talk about lines, and maybe just see how these things work by themselves, and
Yep.
then go from there.
So Gwen is on it. She's getting us some prices, and you heard me ask about cameras.
Yeah, I did. I haven't seen the ones with cameras, but that would be interesting to have too.
The 3D painting was shot down.
I heard that. It's an optical illusion that scares people.
Potential liability.
So we'll get some more data, and then as we start to work on next year's budget, we'll make some decisions. So the Deer Run drainage issue.
So the same day that we were out to look at Rhodes Avenue, also followed the large rain the prior weekend. And the large drain pipe along Deer Run Road, best described as right in front of the sewage pump station, has shown signs of collapse, erosion. If you drive up Deer Run Road, you can see that the large landscape boulders that were there were now sitting down on the pipe. The pipe is exposed. There's a risk of losing the driveway to the pump station. So obviously went out, took a look at that while we were here. Worked with Bill Davis to kind of get a sense of the area. It appears that the water is somehow coming outside of the pipe, and instead of running down through the pipe is backing up and running down the outside of the pipe, which is taking the pipe bedding out of it, and at some point is either coming up out of the ground and going overland, or is getting back into the pipe and going downstream. And the structural integrity of the trench is definitely gone. The pipe is questionable. Bill had a camera company in to look at some sewer last Friday. While they were here, they also took a look at the pipe. I've got that video tonight, so we will take a look at it next week to determine the condition of the pipe to see if it is something that can be lined or if it needs to be dug up and removed. There are some utilities in the way. The pipe is very close to the sanitary main that goes into the pump station that I believe is clay. So we have some concerns of a cross connection, damage to the sanitary line. The pipe is also adjacent to the roadways. We have concerns about if there would be an accident or someone would go off the road into this trench. Kind of the process of the first question was notify PennDOT since it's their road. They replied back that it's not their responsibility. In their opinion, they're only responsible from curb to curb, which I don't know is true or not. But the pipe is the township's responsibility, which is consistent with what I've heard from PennDOT on other similar type projects. Gwen and I have discussed the next logical steps was to get some formal traffic control out there. So if someone were to wreck, you at least have something that meets PennDOT standards. So we have done an exhibit, and we're reaching out to companies that do long-term traffic control to see what a rental would be to get some sort of PennDOT approved barricades up there. So if there was an accident, you were at least covered from that standpoint. We will review the video this week and come back next week with some findings, plan of action, and potential costs to address that. What can be done, what has to be done tomorrow, what can be done next week, what can be done next month, kind of a plan of attack to address this. Questions?
So you're saying that the pipe's in their right of way, but they're not responsible for it?
Yes.
Okay, makes sense. Sorry.
And then emergency exit from Swickley Heights Manor, that's gone to the legal department.
Yes, for the most part, we had also I met with Harlan that same day. We took a look at the two approaches, both Vescio and off of Weber. Kind of came to the conclusion that Weber seems to be the most practical, least impactful. We're assisting Harlan in determining the type of easement that is there because it is a private road, and depending on how that easement is written in the deed descriptions will determine how easement agreements will be drafted, and legal will approach property owners to obtain property.
How many property owners are there?
I believe 4.
Okay.
Swickley Heights Manor Association being one, and then there are 3 houses, but again, it depends how they're written.
Okay,
Maybe a total of 5, but it's,
so we gave Harlan a schedule to have that done by tonight.
Oh, I'll follow up with him. I can call him if you want me to right now.
If
No,
Okay.
this was, should have been under the original developer's agreement, correct, for the manor? Anyone know?
in regard to,
Having an emergency exit.
I don't think so.
It may have,
Did it not, wasn't a requirement back then when it was developed?
it may have been waived.
Because to some extent, the question had become, why haven't they initiated this?
Yes,
And why shouldn't they pay for part of it?
yes. And I was going to say, if there's land involved that the manor owns, that maybe that's a,
Well, there's no problem getting an
Getting
easement
the-
from them, no.
no, okay. At least that part.
So it might be 3 property owners, and just tell Harlan
Get on it.
as soon as we can.
Okay.
And Ben, you're helping with that, obviously.
Yes, we pulled the deed information.
Okay, anything else for our engineer?
Has Pinnock started his project?
Which one?
The one next to his house?
Minot, dead.
What's the construction equipment doing down there?
Is that the,
It'll be a gas staging. They chose to be on Minock's property for now.
Okay. Big equipment.
right. Anything else you have for us, Ben?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Ben.
Airbnb notification letter.
I got language this afternoon from Harlan and Chris. They are recommending that a letter first go out under my signature, which is just a preliminary letter letting the property owner know that what the operating an Airbnb in that zoning district is not allowed. So they recommend giving them a little bit of warning just to say, you know, please stop. And then beyond that, then you'll be receiving a violation notice. But the first letter to be a courtesy letter.
Does the
I could
manor-
expand on that, but I'd
Sure.
prefer to do that probably in a
Done.
brief executive.
Done.
Does the manor get copied on that letter so that Susan or whoever working in the office knows how to handle it? Should the resident call her? Do you think?
Oh, no, I think the manor should be copied. They're aware of this.
Okay,
And they're aware that action's being taken. That's all the further we can go.
okay. I just want to make sure if this resident calls Susan,
Mhm.
Susan
Yeah.
is aware.
That's
So,
a good point.
The manor discussed this at a board meeting,
okay.
but good point.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have a brief executive.
Yeah, like 2 minutes.
I got it.
Yeah.
All right, new business. When? The 2020 pension minimum municipal obligation.
This comes up every fall. It's required by the state to have the boards acknowledge the minimum municipal obligation for the pension plans for the upcoming budget year. So we have Mock and Hop Actuarial Services analyzes our pensions, and they give us back the MMOs based on information that we give them, how many participants, what's the formula calculation. So you have in your packet the police one. There's no expected contribution this year, which means the police plan is expected to be fully funded for 2020 and you don't have to make a contribution. And then the non-uniform employees, the number is 14,190, which is in line with what we expect. So that's the amount that would be in the budget for the non-uniform pensions for 2020. And then just because you vote at the legislative meetings, this will be on the agenda to just vote and acknowledge the MMOs next week.
So we are in compliance and there are no surprises.
Correct.
Highmark Mobile Clinic.
This person, Amy Signorella, reached out. They'd set up a clinic in the parking lot a couple of years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago. And they park like a large RV. And last time they parked it along the side spots over there. They make appointments through their health system. It has nothing to do with the township. It's basically, they just want to know, can they use our parking lot as a location for this service? A couple of years ago they did it. There was not a lot of traffic. There was not a lot of, no impact to us really. So if the board's willing, I can,
Do we need a
Let them
formal
know.
action?
I wouldn't know. I think we can
Thanks.
just make you aware that it's okay with you.
I have no objection.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, I'll let her know.
Good idea.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, 990 Glen Mitchell Road drainage request. Ben, do you have knowledge of this?
Gwen sent over the packet for tonight. and I
Could you
read the-
retake the podium,
Yeah, sorry.
please?
Yeah, Gwen had sent over the packet for tonight with the letter and some pictures. Other than the review of that, I don't have any knowledge of it.
Okay. Gwen, you want to explain?
So the resident at 990 Glen Mitchell is expressing concern that that water runoff is crossing her property and washing out her driveway. Glen Mitchell is a county road, so the drainage is not something that we are in charge of taking care of. She does, there is a road, an access driveway that no one has used.
Excuse me, Gwen, we have things in our packet. If you look in your packet, there's a letter from the homeowner.
Right.
Yeah, I read
And
it.
some- Okay,
Yeah.
good, sorry.
So you have the letter, she explains her situation, you have photos before and after. I've already sent this information to the county because it's a county road. I didn't hear anything back, but I often don't get a thank you for when I send things to the county. So I can follow up with them to see if they received it and see if they are planning to do anything. And I didn't get any feedback from the county yet.
And historically, has the county been cooperative with these sorts of things?
They did come out a couple of years ago, I think, and add a few small asphalt, like bumper strips along the side of the road to help alleviate some of the water runoff in the past. But I believe that what the resident's saying is that with the heavier rains that we're getting, it's not stopping. They're not significant enough to stop the water coming down.
I went out there today and did a quick drive-by, and, you know, obviously now it's not raining as hard, and the driveway looks, you know, I'm not seeing erosion, looks like they put more gravel down. But those pictures look like they were taken back when it was raining a lot.
They were right after a heavy rain event. Yeah.
But the other thing is, and you were starting to talk about, is that driveway, that unpaved driveway up on the other side of the hill wasn't there in the past. That's a new thing, like 5 years ago maybe.
It was always there. It's just, it's a little bit more exposed as a result of a sewer lateral being put up there.
Oh, I thought that like 5 years ago they pushed that road up, and I don't remember it being there.
It was kind of overgrown in the past.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little,
So now they've
more
opened that,
visible.
I think that's funneling all that water right across the street, that driveway. You know, it would have normally come off the hillside another manner, now it's coming down that driveway.
You're,
Crossing the street.
you're getting to the point. Where's the water coming from? Who's responsible for it?
Well, it's coming
What-
from another property, crossing the street, and then
And,
going onto.
and then what should the township be involved in and what should they not?
That's what I was getting to, is it a
Right.
responsibility, or even the county's, when it's maybe coming from across the street, so I don't know how that works.
So what's the next step, Gwen? You're gonna continue to talk to the county?
I'm kind of looking for guidance on what the next steps are. You know, I would be happy to reach back out to the county and say, did you get this and do you plan to do anything? Or do you have any update for me?
Well, then our public works had some ideas.
They looked at it also just and said they found a couple things that might work. I went back to the property owner and asked her engineer. She says that she has an engineer and that he's willing to talk to someone here to explain what he thinks the solution is. So I let the property owner know that, and she did give the engineer my phone number. So, you know, the engineer may call me. I can listen, but if there's going to be a site visit, I'm not sure. But when I talk to the engineer, I'm going to request that if he has a solution, that he put it in writing, just so it can be quickly and easily reviewed by the board or by Public Works or by Ben, just so if they feel that there's a solution, we'd like to hear what it is.
I think Chris has.
Yeah, well, when we discussed this earlier, I thought this was purely county. So in terms of giving a solution, has he given any opinion as to why the township should be involved?
I haven't talked to him yet. I have a message, but I haven't talked to him.
I think that's critical.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, I think we could participate as a courtesy to the resident to try to get them in contact with the correct people and help to use our clout to get something done. But certainly, I don't want to give any impression that if it's not our responsibility that we're willing to entertain any solution.
I think we just gather some more information at this point, see what the engineer suggests, and then I'll bring that back. Nobody's gonna do anything.
Now, certainly, if the
I'll just bring
engineer
that
comes
back.
in with a reason that the township should listen, then certainly we'll entertain that, but I haven't heard one yet.
Yeah.
Good.
So, I think it's just gonna be ongoing.
You referred to the property that has a sewer lateral on it. Is that property, is it something that our authority could have some responsibility for?
No, I believe it's just a lateral. It's not, it's, you know, a lateral for a house way up on the hill that I don't even think is occupied.
Okay, so more information.
I'll just keep working to gather more information and I'll
I
bring
think
back whatever I learn.
if the engineer comes, there's no harm in him talking to Tim.
Okay.
But with the caveat that
Yeah, no
The
promises,
county.
yeah.
Who at the county do you deal with on this?
There's a Jim and I his last name is escaping me right now, but he's the county maintenance supervisor. So he's the one who comes out and looks at stuff and.
Okay.
Okay, any other new business? Any audience participation? All right, well, we're going to move into a brief executive session now.
George, one more thing. I just want to put this out there. At some point here in the future, I want to talk about, not today, maybe for next week, trying to get some bids out for the zoning for next year to see if we can accommodate next year's budget. Because if roads and all these other future repairs are going to be really expensive, it might not be. But I'd like to have a figure to see what we can work with. So I don't know when we're going to do our budget, but.
Talk to Gwen about what you want on the agenda.
Well, what I'd like to, just a ballpark figure, what's going to, might cost to redo our zoning. We don't have to get a bid yet, but if you have any research or information on what it cost last time, or, what it costs nowadays. I don't know when it did it last time, like 10 years ago, so.
Yeah.
That plus whatever.
Due to Gwen's family event that may not be ready for next week.
Okay, well then.
That I put it on the to-do list of, I probably won't have any information for you by next week, so if you want me to just bump it to October's.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if
Workshop.
it'll fit in our budget when we start budgeting.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, I'll definitely put it on the budget list of things we
Okay.
want to factor in.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you all for coming.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you have anything for me after?
No.
Hey Chris, did you get
Want me
that?
to
Sorry.
join
Okay.
Or no?
Just turn it off.
Turn it off.
Chris, do we
Yes.
need engineering?
Yeah, I mean,